Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening or this afternoon, however you want to put it. This is a candidates forum for the Arlington County Board special election, which will be held on July 7th of this year to fill the seat vacated by the untimely death of Eric Gutschall. With us tonight are three candidates running for that seat. They are Bob Cunningham running on the Republican ticket, Susan Cunningham running as an independent, and Takis Karantonis running on the Democratic ticket. To start with tonight, I just want to go over the ground rules for the forum, and then we'll do a little bit of shameless self-promotion of both the Pike Presidents Group, or PPG, and CPRO as sponsors, and then we will get into the meat of this forum. So, ground rules. This forum will go until 7 o'clock this evening. We ask that all participants keep their mics off except when they're actually speaking. I will introduce each candidate. I'll give a brief introduction after we do our little talk about CPRO and the PPG. We'll have a series of questions that have been submitted in advance by the PPG and CPRO. After those questions, we will be taking questions from the audience. If you have questions, please put them in the chat function. We will be screening those and consolidating them, and those will be forwarded to me as highlights. And we will ask those of the candidates as we have time. Each candidate, when we start, will be given 2 minutes for an opening statement. When we get into the Q&A part, each candidate will have 90 seconds to give their response. We want to keep this quick and to the point and to be able to get as many questions in as possible. Candidates will be muted if they exceed time limits. We ask the candidates not interrupt each other. And we also will rotate candidates with each round. So, for example, first question will go in the order of A, B, C, then we'll go B, C, A, C, A, B, et cetera, et cetera. So everyone has the chance to be first and then, move around. Last thing, when we get towards the end, we'll allow each candidate to have 2 minutes for a closing statement before we end the evening. So if there are any questions or anything that's not clear, please share that in chat. And let's move on to the presentation. Is this up for everyone? The screen share? All right, so a little bit about PPG. I'm chair of the PPG. My name's Adam Henderson. I'm also president of the Douglas Park Civic Association. I've been chair of the Pike Presidents Group for the last 5.5 years. The Pike Presidents Group, say that 3 times fast, is an organization that is comprised of 11 neighborhoods in the Columbia Pike corridor. We meet monthly, 10 out of 12 months of the year. All presidents of our Columbia Pike Civic Associations are members, voting members of the PPG. And we have a number of people within the Pike community who join us each month, mainly to discuss issues of the importance to the Pike corridor and 22204 in general. So what is the Pike? The Pike is, as many people have called it, a world in a zip code. We are the most diverse corridor in the county. Lots of variety and diversity in ethnicity and income, in you name it. We are the world in a zip code. We have a unique blend of housing types, of businesses, of shops, of ethnic restaurants, and we are the oldest and newest Main Street in the county. Columbia Pike was first laid out 210 years ago this year in 1810. So we are celebrating our 210th anniversary here. So we are far older than Arlington County itself is, which is actually right now at its 100th anniversary for the founding of Arlington County as a separate unit from Alexandria. So with that, I will pass it on to Kim, who's going to tell you a little bit about CPRO.
Great. Thank you so much, Adam. If you could flip to the next slide for me real quick.
There you go.
Thank you. So CPRO and the Pike, as Adam mentioned, we work hand in hand with PPG, the Pike Presidents Group, to really bring together the businesses, the community, the county, and the region to support what is Columbia Pike. Columbia Pike is special to all of us because of its diversity. It's just a neat place to be, and we want to continue to have it be that way. We are a 501c3, so we are a nonprofit. We have been around for 34 years. I have been the executive director now for about 14 months. It's been an adventure, and I've loved every minute of it. And we will celebrate our birthday, our 35th, next year. Hopefully by that time, we will be able to gather and to celebrate. But if not, I'm sure we will find some type of hybrid option. Next slide, please. So CPRO has been very busy, not just during COVID, but previously. And we really want to thank everyone that's joining us today and people you know for helping us with the Buy a Nurse Lunch program, which raised over $40,000, has provided over 900 lunches to nurses at BHC, to Mary Marshall Assisted Living, the Arlington Pediatric Center, using the businesses and the restaurants on the Pike. We are now doing the Feeding Our Families program, which uses our farmers to actually supply produce to our residents at APA properties and AHC properties. You'll notice the orange business banners on the Pike, which are free to any business who wants them. We're also working through the form-based code position paper with PPG, with our businesses, and with property owners, managers, and developers to really think about what is the vision for Columbia Pike. How do we marry diversity and development? Next slide, please. So real quick is my shameless plug, which you will see in my background as well. This would have been the 25th annual Blues Festival. We had a wonderful lineup, which we're hoping to move to 2021. But you know what? We continue to prevail. We continue to pivot. And we are going to be doing a backyard blues festival on WARA 96.7 on Saturday from 5 to 7 p.m. We will be calling for volunteers to step outside and turn on the music. And we do have partnering restaurants who will be participating as well. So that's my shameless plug. Adam, I will send it back to you.
Thank you, Kim. All right. So to start with, I want to do a brief introduction of each of our candidates tonight, and then we'll move right into opening statements. So all the candidates have, at our request, provided a brief bio, which I will read to you just so you know a little bit about their background. First off is Bob Cambridge. Bob Cambridge has been a resident of Arlington for over 40 years. He served for 7 years in the United States Army and was discharged at the rank of captain in the military intelligence branch. He served 3 years as an information science instructor in the Central Intelligence Agency and has been an attorney since 1979. He has experience as corporate counsel, as a litigator, and a negotiator. Bob says he volunteered to be the Republican candidate for Arlington County Board in the July 7th special election while success is a long shot, it is an opportunity to share ideas, and that is, to his mind, something well worth doing. He has a website at bobcambridge.com where some of his ideas have been posted. He notes that he has learned over time that many people he disagrees with are not necessarily wrong, but generally both can be right in part and both can be wrong in part. At his website is a quote from Wikipedia concerning the parable of the blind man and an elephant, which does a good job of illustrating this idea. Bob was in Japan for 3 years whilst in the Army, and he can see how ideas from a management professor, W. Edward Deming, allowed the Japanese to produce cars which in the 1970s were both less expensive and better built than comparable US models. Ford and GM now use those techniques to compete successfully with foreign automakers and other companies who also use the techniques to produce higher quality products at a lower cost. Governments, including the Arlington County Board, would benefit from adopting those techniques and insight. Concerning insight, Bob feels that diversity is very good here, but that the Arlington County Board has lacked diversity of perspective for almost 40 years due to one-party rule. Bob wants to see more effective and efficient uses of the taxes he pays each year, and he believes that more ideas can advance that agenda. If he loses the election, but the county tries to implement some of the ideas he is sharing in his campaign, most of which he has shamelessly plagiarized from others anyway, he figures we all win, himself included. Takis Karantonis was born in Athens, Greece. His father was a civil servant at the National Bank of Greece and his mother an office manager. Supported by scholarships from the German Ministry of Education, Takis studied economics in Berlin and graduated with a master's degree in urban and regional economics with an emphasis on inequality in urban development. He began his professional life in Europe, working in municipal procurement, public sanitation contracting, and airport development in Switzerland, the United Kingdom, France, and Spain. After working in Europe for more than 15 years, and then spending a short time in South America, Takis came to the United States to support his partner and future wife, Lita, as she pursued a doctorate in biomedical sciences, coming to Arlington in 2007 after living in both Houston and Nashville. While in Arlington, Takis has served as the executive director for the Columbia Pike Revitalization Organization, CPRO, our co-sponsors tonight, for more than 6 years. In that capacity, he worked closely with Arlington County officials and several advisory commissions, most notably the Planning, Housing, and Economic Development Commissions. He was an integral part of planning the award-winning Columbia Pike Neighborhoods Plan and Form-Based Code, and has remained engaged in the follow-up planning efforts to those plans, including the current Arlington Career Center expansion building level planning commission. Takis is also a member of the County Transit Advisory Commission. He has been involved with a number of local organizations and other advisory commissions, has served as a precinct captain, and was campaign manager and political advisor to both Eric Gutschall and Parisa Delgahi Tafti. Takis is a 2010 graduate of the Leadership Arlington and a 2017 graduate of the Sorensen Institute for Political Leadership. Our final candidate tonight is Susan Cunningham. Susan is a seasoned executive, entrepreneur, engineer, and community advisor who brings people and data together to deliver solutions that break through the status quo without breaking the bank. She has over 25 years' experience addressing complex challenges across all sectors to improve government revenue, citizen services, facilities planning, and workforce development. A Yale University graduate and Fulbright scholar, Susan was named 2007 Social Entrepreneur of the Year by the New Schools Venture Fund. She has delivered successful innovation on the right priorities at the right time, from innovative public-private partnerships locally to large-scale sustainable master planning and design worldwide. Susan led the Ham Middle School Building Level Planning Committee and the Superintendent's Special Committee on Historic Interpretation at the former Stafford Junior High School. She is a founding member of the Arlington Joint Facilities Advisory Committee, convening county and schools leadership to proactively plan long-term public facility needs. She is a board member of Child Trends, the nation's leading research organization focused exclusively on improving the lives of children and vulnerable youth. After first moving to an Arlington group house fresh out of college, today she and her husband live in the Donaldson Run neighborhood in their 1950s Rambler with their two school-age daughters. They are active members of St. Mary's Episcopal Church, where Susan co-founded the Ministry on Race, Reconciliation, and Equity that engages all ages to both learn and act to dismantle racism and nurture inclusive communities. So, opening statements all, and since I ended with Susan, let's start with Susan with the opening statements. 2 minutes, please. Susan, you're muted. There you go.
Thanks, Adam. Yeah, I think it's set that you can't unmute yourself, so we may have that each time. Thank you. Thank you, Adam, for the intro, and Kim for co-hosting. I am really excited to be here with you guys tonight, and I wanted to give a quick introduction as to why I'm running for county board. I really believe that Arlington needs experienced, practical, and effective leadership right now. Our budgets and priorities are going to be difficult and challenging these next couple of years, and we'll be reinventing as we go along, both schools and business, public health, and infrastructure. I bring an all Arlington, all life stages view to the future of Arlington, as a mother, as a civic leader, as a business owner. I'm running as a progressive independent, nonpartisan, transparent, and trusted government. I plan to work for all of Arlington, not just party insiders or a particular party. Like I said, I've known Arlington across all the life stages, landed here in a shared room, actually in Crystal City right after college, a shared townhouse in East Falls Church neighborhood a little bit later, and then failed attempt to buy right there on the Pike in 2003, and landed instead right off of the highway where we still live, and we're juggling careers, distance learning that blissfully just ended for the two daughters, and aging parents both in Roslyn and in Tennessee. While I've lived here, Arlington has grown by more than a third, and our budget is now $1.5 billion. Nearly 250,000 diverse residents are served by the county. It's a big business that really deserves professional management. As a board member, I would hit the ground running, bringing 25 years of experience across nearly every sector, leading organizations through crisis, through change, in the nonprofit sector, in the government sector, and in business. I bring a deep training on how to absorb information quickly, distill what matters most, and create solutions that get results. Right. I'm a data nerd, but the real magic I bring is bringing people and data together to get the right solution and get it done.
All right, time.
These are tough times, and I ask for your vote. And I'm looking forward to additional questions. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you. Takis?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Pike Presidents and CPRO, for having us today, Monday, before a Blues Fest next Saturday. We are all very excited, and I hope it will be very well supported by the community. So I'm Takis Karantonis. I'm running for county board because I'm proud of what Arlington is, and I want to shape our future. I'm an immigrant, as you've heard. I came here with my wife in 2007, and I'm part of the world in a zip code, as you said. So I'm a planner and economist. I was the former executive director of the very organization that's co-hosting this forum today. I worked with businesses and civic associations and nonprofits to transform the Pike. As a vice chair of the Alliance for Housing Solutions, I fought against displacement, but also to bring a better mix of market rate housing, especially where it's missing, like on the Pike's West End, for example. I joined the Public Transit Advisory Committee because of my work to fix Pike Ride to the level of service that was always promised but never delivered. I participate in the planning for the transformation of the Career Center, and this is why I know firsthand what it takes to meet rising student enrollment with limited public land and limited budget. Not only as a policy geek, but also as a civic association president, I'm committed to serious planning and meaningful civic participation. I walk the walk, and I will continue walking it. So COVID has revealed vulnerabilities and inequalities, especially in these neighborhoods, in our neighborhoods. We must learn the lessons, and we also must learn from the thousands of Arlingtonians of all races and walks of life who continue marching because Black Lives Matter. So this is a special election that's not only about the deliverables of local governance, it's about leadership and values and about restoring trust in our government for all Arlingtonians without exceptions. So this is why I'm running. I'm ready to serve, and I'm looking forward to this discussion today. Thank you again for having us.
All right. Bob?
There we go. I'm Bob Cambridge. I've been a resident of Arlington since 1982, and in fact, from 1975 to 76, I was over on Columbia Pike at Dorchester Towers while I was working at the Pentagon. I am surprised and delighted at how much Columbia Pike has changed. I drive down there now, and while I regret the loss of some of the businesses that were there, I see a lot of really neat things going on. I congratulate your group because I've got to say, you've done some first-class work. And Columbia Pike is a very, very important part of our city. All of the corridors have all these businesses, and they are vibrant, in large part because of folks like you. I'm running because I do have a bit of experience with things that have happened here in Arlington. And I am, let's say, mildly troubled by some things. I have a neighbor who had a lot. He wanted to be subdivided and put 2 houses up here. This is denied. And yet, right down the road a short ways, an individual who's allegedly politically corrected got a zoning variance to build. They tore down a $600,000 place and put up 2 $1.2 million McMansions, which I'm not happy about because I don't think we need a whole lot of more high-end things. We've got a terrible demand for affordable housing. We have a missing middle, and I don't think that kind of a change does anything for either one. I don't believe that the board members that we've had, past and current, are bad people, but I think that there are some mistakes, and they shouldn't allow it to look that way. It shouldn't look like maybe there is some insider trading. It shouldn't look like some people are getting a better treatment than others. I would like the opportunity to give a different perspective. If you go to bobcambridge.com, my website, you'll see, and I'll continue to post some ideas as to how we can accomplish that. I would appreciate your vote. And I'm Bob Cambridge, the Charter Republican, if you believe. Thank you.
All right, we'll go now to the questions. First question, again, these are questions drawn from the PPG and CPRO membership. First question, let's talk a little bit about housing. So housing affordability is an ongoing issue across Arlington County. Despite regular investment by our county government, we continue to experience a net loss of affordable housing throughout Arlington County. How do you believe that Arlington should address this problem? And how do we make the distribution of affordable housing across the county more equitable? So let's start with Takis. And again, 90 seconds for your response, please.
So housing affordability, as you very correctly put it, is a critical challenge for our community, for Arlington, and for our economy, because this is critical for us to be able to house our workforce in Arlington. And we have been hemorrhaging market rate affordable units in the last 20 years. And that means we have been hemorrhaging people and talent and skills and economic vitality. So for starters, I believe that I support the Affordable Housing Master Plan and its goals. I think we haven't been delivering so well on these goals. We have been making approximately 50% of those, but and we have to do way better. And this is an area that I've been working as a civic activist a lot. About the distribution of affordable housing, and this is critical. The critical issue is to see whether we have the capacity, where we locate housing close to public transportation, where our services is, where we can service that the best, and our corridors. And for our corridors, housing, Arlington has had excellent plans. I worked on Columbia Pike to do exactly that, to allow for affordable housing. But when we talk about affordability, we talk about all the gamut of different price ranges for everybody to be able to afford housing close to public transportation, close to retail, close to jobs. This is critical, and this is what I am for. Was that 90 seconds exactly? more or less. I see your counters.
98.
Okay.
All right, Bob?
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I agree with Takis that the housing is important and the transportation is important. That not only do we need the housing that people can afford to get into, but they need to be able to get to jobs. They need to be able to get to amenities. They need to be able to shop. And that's been a problem. I'll take a cheap shot here and say, you know, that $1 million bus stop, that was bought 5 buses. And I think the buses would have better served us than would a fancy stop. Neat idea had we the money, but I don't think we had it then. We certainly don't have it now. What we need to do is deal with a situation where we're going to have even less money. We haven't met the need or the need for affordable housing, and it's going to get tougher. I floated an idea, which is a little weird. I was into underground housing about 40 years ago now. I was planning on building an underground house. Terracet Elementary School out in Fairfax is an underground school. Why is underground a good thing? Well, you can get a lot of people together, and visually it's not quite as objectionable, I guess, but also it's cheaper. You can actually build for less, and oh, by the way, the utilities are less. At Terracet, they vent heat in the winter because the students' bodies put out so much. It's just an idea. It has to be kicked around, and we have to see if we can do it. But I would like to see more ideas just like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Susan?
Great. Well, I think it's a really, really important question, and particularly along the Pike, which has hosted more of our affordable housing, even as it declines in number across the years. Number one, we need to make sure that our people are taken care of and housed, particularly during this critical time of COVID and the financial crisis associated with it. We need to make sure that we are providing emergency support, emergency rent support to keep people housed and safe. And that is number one. Number two, we need to be more creative in our implementation of affordable housing. Today, our affordable housing plan is a great plan, but we're not even meeting half of our goals there, and are on track to meet even fewer of them as financial resources become tighter. So we need more tools in our toolkit. And we need to work with the private sector to build that, work with residents across the entire county to welcome affordable housing in all forms, from small accessory units to larger multifamily units. It should not all be concentrated on the Pike. We know that affordable housing works best for people and for communities when it's distributed, and we all live near one another and can be good neighbors.
All right. Thank you, Susan. All right, next question. And for this one, we'll start the rotation with Bob Cunningham. Excuse me, Bob Cambridge. It's a shame 2 of you have C last names. It's getting me confused tonight. All right. The Columbia Pike Corridor is home to an incredibly diverse community of both generationally, culturally, and socioeconomically. As the Pike has revitalized, there has been a desire in the community to balance diversity and development. Describe how you feel that balance should be set in the future, and what policies you as a county board member would champion to realize that vision. All right, again, let's start with Bob.
Well, it's not my place to tell anyone where they can or can't live, period. And I don't think it necessarily is the board's either, but the board is capable of doing zoning, doing some other things which do make it easier for people with less means to actually get into what is a wonderful place. I mean, Arlington County it's got jobs. Arlington County is a beautiful place. Arlington County has got a lot of services. Arlington County has got a reasonably good transportation system. One of my problems is that there are large parts of the county that still, you've got to walk quite a ways to get to a bus. I use the buses. I like using the buses. Don't have to drive. I can sit there and read. It's great. And I don't have to pay for parking. And that ought to be more available. If we can get more density in some places, we can get the buses over there and still not lose money on doing that. So it is a balancing, it is a challenge, it is something that needs to be looked at, thought at, and frankly, we need ideas, not just from experts, not just from people who are, let's call them activists, who are really, you know, they're a group of people who are wonderful because they're at the meetings, they're at the board things, and they're making themselves known. But we need information from the people who this is going to affect, and they're not participating in this planning nearly as much as I'd like to see them do. That's what Deming did in Japan. He got the guy right there on the assembly line to chip in and realize that he was going to be listened to. What difference does it make? Who in the world knows more about what's going on that maybe is really stupid right in front of this guy who's on the assembly line than the guy that's on the assembly line? That's the effect that I want to see. So what do we need to do? We do need to outreach more and also make people believe that if they say something, we're going to listen. That's all the difference that the Japanese did, but they ended up making some marvelous cars and other products just that way. We can do it too.
All right. Thank you, Bob. Susan.
Our diversity, both in our residents and in our businesses of all shapes and sizes, is really what makes Arlington special, and especially what makes Columbia Pike special across its dignified career of 200 years. And so it's really important, even as we envision a future that has new players, both residents and businesses, that we make space to preserve and to support the folks that have gotten us this far and that are really important to us. Columbia Pike is made up of distinct neighborhoods that run together to create a lively environment to live, to work, and to do business. The county board can play a role in ensuring that transportation improvements, of which there are many planned and still more to be planned, in particular, support our businesses without burdening them. And I know a lot of the multimodal transit plan efforts to date have sometimes landed without enough communication or without enough thought about left-hand turn lane and getting to businesses where their patterns established. And so I would bring a real focus on context, listening, and acting and refining when needed to get it right for our small businesses and ensure that the Pike continues to be a lively place to do business, to work, and to live.
All right. Thank you, Susan. All right, next question. Let's shift gears a bit and talk a little bit about schools and how they relate to the county board. So,
Hey, Adam, I don't
Yeah.
think Takis went.
oh, absolutely, you are correct. I am so sorry. Takis, not paying attention to my notes. Takis, my apologies.
Unmute him.
Unmute myself. Okay, that happens to all us diverse people sometimes. We are overseen, but I know that happens. It's always a challenge, I know, to manage these meetings. So that's a very, very Columbia Pike question, how we balance diversity with development, because the experience is that displacement is happening as we speak, and COVID-19 is actually menacing us with the mother of all diversement waves when many lower and moderate income households will find themselves after the expiration of the eviction moratorium they will find themselves burdened, and the current unemployment situation is even making things worse. So attention to our schools, attention to our transportation system and our connectivity so that people can get to their jobs and back with a decent system. Attention to our affordable housing policies that we talked about that previously. Attention to our economic development policies so that we can maintain the diverse retail that we have and not further losing it as we go. I propose a revolving microloan program precisely for this reason. I have been doing it for many years. It's not a new idea. When we lost the Food Star, we knew that we will send a signal that there is no affordable grocery on Columbia Pike anymore, and people would have to go to other places. So, and this is where the leadership part, or the leadership, where leadership really matters. Yeah, time. I just wanted to say, CPRO is one of the organizations that provide this leadership too.
Thank you. All right, moving on to schools, as I prematurely started to say. The Arlington County Board in general commits a fixed percentage of the general fund revenue every year to the Arlington Public School System. Given the ongoing increase in APS enrollment and problems with space constraints that we have been seeing over the last few years in our school system, do you favor revisiting this allocation? If not, what solutions would you propose to ease this problem? And in our rotation, we are now back to Susan to start us off.
Okay, great. I think this is, in fact, one of the biggest and most important questions for this community and this county board. Our school growth has far outpaced, our student population growth has far outpaced our resident growth. And we deliver a high quality education product that we intend to keep. And so when you pencil that out across the next 10 to 20 years, there's a train wreck coming where we can't afford both to do the schools and run the county in the ways that we've expected to do it without massive increases in tax rates. So it is time to get ahead of that and stop kicking the can down the road. COVID makes an incredible pressure on our schools. Our schools have not hit it out of the park, frankly, this year with COVID. And the county and the schools need to put everything on the table, roll up our sleeves, figure out where we're spending money, what results we're trying to get, what is the impact and the value of the money that we're spending, and refigure it a bit. So absolutely, I would support relooking at the formula and getting away from a formula probably in the medium term to make sure that we're getting outcomes that we want to have. I think a great example is this week's very lively conversation about school resource officers. Right now, that's in the county budget. The schools can say no, but they don't get that money back. And so we need to be more elegant, more thoughtful about sharing and about getting best value across the schools and the county.
Thank you, Susan. Takis.
Okay, so this is a very good question. This is indeed about 50%, 47% of our tax base right now. What we need to invest in our schools, and this is part of our values as Arlingtonians. We stand behind, and I stand behind our public school system. Now we have to make every effort to fund it. And it's true that the student population has been rising, and this is why we have to review from time to time our revenue sharing principles. That's part of the collaboration between county board and school board. We have also to work very hard as a county board and together with the school board to make sure that the federal and state mandates are all fully funded and appropriately backed by federal and state dollars when we are asked to be compliant with them. We should also look at the areas where we can increase collaboration. So human resources, for example, information technology services. We have seen that now during COVID, how important that is. Legal counsel, auditing, transportation, facilities. We have a lot of areas that we haven't even started to explore yet. On the other side, we have already a very good experience with existing collaboration schemes with schools, like with resource officers and pools and fields and co-use and community centers. So I'm optimistic, but we will have to have a very thorough conversation with the school board and with the community as a whole about funding our schools.
All right, thank you, Takis. Bob?
No, I appreciate that question, and think about it. We are giving a flat percentage of the budget to the schools every year and have been doing that for quite a few years now. And the question is, why wasn't this asked before? I mean, the issue isn't so much how much. It's nice to be able to have the money and to throw it at a problem, but it's also possible to do a job better, maybe even with less money, if that's the way it falls out. And oh my gosh, we're going to have less money in this COVID mess. So we are going to have to start getting creative. We are going to have to start getting flexible. And frankly, I very much regret that we have been cruising along and not really focused on this issue for so long. You know, the few loans that the government made caused a whole bunch more people to go to college. That's good. Then the colleges ended up with a lot more money. Maybe that's good. And they started upping all the salaries, and the tuition started even getting more expensive. I mean, the unintended consequence was that what at a shallow level seems like a really good idea turned out to hurt everyone, including the students. Including the students. That's not right. And so I do regret that we've had a one-party system, cheap shot, I admit, for as long as we have, and have allowed this situation, a flat percentage, totally independent of what we're doing with that money. That's not right. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, our final question from PPG and CPRO, and then we'll go to questions from the audience. The Columbia Pike corridor has struggled over the last few years to sustain daytime retail uses, specifically restaurants. Recently, both the Arlington Economic Commission commissioned a Columbia Pike market study, and CPRO itself released a form-based code position paper with suggested updates to the form-based code. Among the priorities from both of these as possible solutions were changes to retail equivalents and ground floor uses, zoning changes, signage changes, retail-focused architecture and design, and a focus and commitment to premium transit options throughout the Pike corridor. So my question to you as candidates is, what of those are your top 2 priorities that you feel you would most want to champion as a member of the Arlington County Board? And we'll start with Takis.
So it is absolutely clear that I fully agree with the position paper that CPRO has submitted to the county board, and as I understand it, is also supported by the Pike presidents in that. It is all of the above, and my very first priority will be to strengthen the ability of the leading organization that can coordinate, orchestrate, and boost economic development, which is CPRO itself, to work with our businesses to be able to adapt to the problematic position of Columbia Pike now between 2 very strongly developing transportation corridor, which is Richmond Highway and the Rosslyn-Ballston corridor. The study has shown that there is an 80 million gap of available income on Columbia Pike, of consumer income on Columbia Pike, that is actually flowing out of the Pike, and we cannot capture it and use it to grow business on the Pike. So for me, the strengthening the local partnership will be the #1 priority in this case, and working and having Arlington Economic Development work with CPRO. And it's absolutely clear that we have to revisit our form-based code, especially the very old one from 2003, harmonize it with the 2012 form-based code, and make it work for modern retail, neighborhood-based retail that will work for everybody. And then try to recruit the businesses that will bring office workers back to the Pike as good as we possibly can. Strengthening these businesses also economically with aforementioned and revolving microloan program will be an additional support for this. I think I went over my time.
Yes, you did, sir.
You should tell me. I'm not looking at I cannot look at the same time.
Yeah, I am. You just didn't hear me, but no worries. Bob?
Yeah, something like signage. I mean, the businesses have an interest, and yet the people who live there have an interest in how the corridor looks. And zoning. Again, we've got the businesses which are generating the economic activity, and we've got people who live there and have got a dog in that fight too. So I would actually like to focus more on transparency. I keep hearing from people that, we asked about this, we asked about that, and the board said, well, you had to put in a Freedom of Information Act request, which costs money. And oh, by the way, they're not doing it for a whole bunch of reasons. And they haven't, or in some cases, years, they haven't provided information which should be public knowledge. That's a symptom that bothers me a great deal. Again, the board shouldn't be doing things that makes us suspicious. And they are. So I would focus on not telling the people, the businesses and the residents how I want to see it done. I would go to them and say, what do you need to have done? Because you're the people that are living that. You're the people that are going to have to live with this decision. And oh, by the way, you've got the detailed knowledge of Columbia Pike that no one on the board, I mean, even Takis, Takis lived there. I lived there 30 years ago. So, you want someone who's there now and knows what's going on now and knows the people and is hearing what's being said now. That's the people that I want involved in this, in any change that we make. And oh, by the way, with COVID and its constraints, we're going to have to get flexible. That'll help us do that. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Bob. Susan?
Yes, thanks, Adam. Yeah, the form-based code was a great idea in its time, right? So it really reflected an intent to spur development along the Pike. And I think to a great extent, it did that. I think we're seeing now that some of the rigidity that was built in, even in the revisions, needs a relook and probably needs more flexibility longer term as well. So just as we're seeing in COVID, we can make changes pretty quickly when we have to, and sometimes we get it wrong, but often it's really freeing and creates more efficient, easier to do business, easier to go to businesses in Arlington, and we need to do more of that. So, signage is one piece within the form-based code, but just that innovation, willingness to adapt the rules to the context is really important all the way through. The other piece that I would really focus on is the office. I think that our older, the board members from that time over-indexed on residential and retail. We know we need office to make the daytime traffic go, and that's absolutely crucial. It's also important that we have diversity of office types across the county so that we reduce some of the trips as well. So I think those are the two things I would focus on: flexibility and innovation, and then getting the office there.
All right, thank you, Susan. All right, now the questions from the audience. So to start off, at this Saturday's board meeting, a number of the Citizens Advisory Commission chairs presented a letter and spoke in open forum time at the beginning of the meeting, and they presented a letter last week challenging the board with some of the restrictions that have been made on meetings of Citizens Advisory Commissions during the COVID pandemic. Related to that is the fact that staff and county management are bringing forward a number of proposals to the board for approval that have not been fully vetted with residents of the residents in their communities and have not been heard by the various citizens advisory groups that are authorized by the board to screen these items. So in light of all that, what is your position on managing the county manager and county staff to ensure that even during a pandemic, that citizen input is properly evaluated before things go to the county board? And we'll start with Bob this time.
Again, given my experience in Japan, I know that the best solutions are frankly dynamic. You don't say this is what you're going to do, and then for the next 5 years, that's what you blindly do. And we are going into a period where we don't really know all of the challenges that we're going to run into. So I don't see them reviewing something and then passing it on to the staff. I'd like to see a collaboration between people who are interested and are willing to talk and the staff. I mean, merely an email or a texting link or a blog spot that the county board staff members actually look at on fairly frequent occasions would be a real improvement. Because these are the people that are doing things at a detail level, and no manager can know in detail everything. Micromanagement is generally a mistake, and yet really good ideas. And this is why, as a Republican, I'm still in favor of diversity, because everyone is looking at something different. Every one of us has lived a different life to some extent, and some of us radically different lives. And we see different things. And that is what we absolutely have to take advantage of in this time. We need those ideas, and we're not going to get them by ignoring all of the stakeholders. So what I'd like to see instead is turn it around. Realize that they can get us out of this mess. We just need to ask, and we're not doing it.
All right. Thank you, Bob. Susan?
Yeah, thank you, Adam. I was a co-signer on that letter as a member of the Joint Facilities Advisory Commission. I think it is unconscionable that we would use a national crisis and a local crisis as an excuse to shut down engagement by our community. It literally took my breath away. We are using sort of Freedom of Information Act rules to say that we have to stop sharing information with our community, and it is beyond ironic. That needs to get fixed right away. We're already seeing the challenge, and the board is seeing the challenge of having so many people come to them to make comment when you don't have the commission's meeting in order to collect that comment and to encourage residents to be heard. So absolutely, it would be a top priority. Accountability and transparency are fundamental to government, and that would be my number one approach to government, both during the crisis and afterwards. As far as managing staff, our staff manage the board right now. We have sort of a go-along board at times. We have a professional staff who has much to offer. But a board of a business that's $1.4 billion needs to be a professional management board that holds the manager accountable, holds the manager accountable for holding his people accountable, and ensures that we are running the entire county as a tight ship with great outcomes.
All right. Thank you, Susan. Takis.
Okay. So this is really, I testified last Saturday. I want to testify on this topic. I testified in support of the letter that was written, and I absolutely agree with that. This is really not okay that after 2 months or already or more than that, that we don't have, that our commissions are still not functioning, and that staff is bringing on issues, is bringing on decidables in front of the board. So that really doesn't resonate with me at all. I think that this needs to be fixed immediately. The commissions need to be. We have to find a good solution to bring them back and handle the business that is before the board and advise the board accordingly. That said, and we have to look at the schools. The schools commissions are working. My wife could participate in all commissions that she's on the school side. So I think that this needs urgent attention. And I hope that the county board chair, who was a champion of civic participation, robust civic participation, will intervene in this. In addition, I think that this is also COVID and Black Lives Matter gives us also pause to look at how broad and how deep and how important civic participation is and what accountability really means. And I'm going to be a champion of broadening this and deepening that participation and making it more meaningful. I come from this part of the Arlington Way, and I intend to walk the walk.
All right, next question. This goes to the recent protests, the Black Lives Matters protests we've been seeing around the country and the call to defund police. So first, what is your response to the call for defunding police, which specifically means revisiting resources that police are now given and reallocating them to better uses within the community, whether they're human services, whether they're crisis intervention, or any other non-hostile means of resolving disputes. And corollary to that, we've been asked, with the increase in technology that police are allowed, such as license plate readers, police body cameras, facial recognition, cell phone trackers, et cetera, what action, if any, should Arlington County take with respect to data privacy and law enforcement oversight? And should some of our police resources be shifted more towards human services? And for this round, we will start with Susan.
Okay, great. Yeah, I've been there for a lot of the conversation these last couple of weeks. And honestly, across my career, I spent a lot of time early on working with kids in Southeast DC who are living, just as many Arlingtonians are, these challenges every day. And I think that Black Lives Matter and associated conversations right now is really a cry for help. It's really highlighting that we need to stop and listen and change how we are funding things, how we are training people, how we are acting. And so I think there's a lot of grief and a lot of pain in that, but there is also a great deal of energy and optimism and young people especially coming forward and getting more involved. I absolutely would, not just on police, but across everything, schools and county, look at budgets as a strategic tool to prioritize what you want to get done, to measure whether it's getting done, and to refine as you go. So absolutely, same for police, same for all the discipline efforts that are done within schools. We know that our numbers are not good, just like the rest of the country. Our systemic racism creeps into our discipline decisions, whether it be in the courts or the police or in a kindergarten classroom. We need to do better, and we need to do it together. So that would be my immediate focus. Second would be implementation matters, making sure that what we plan to do, we do, and check ourselves with ongoing accountability.
Thank you, Susan. Takis?
Thank you for the question. It's a complex question. It's two questions actually in one. I will start with the issue of defunding police. Thank you for qualifying the slogan, because this is indeed the background of the conversation, to shift priorities and to focus exactly on equity issues within our police departments. So for me, the number one thing right now is to go forward with essential and decisive reform, instituting a civilian police review board. For me, this is now something that has to happen. Funding the body count program, I was pleased to see that the county manager is going to bring a proposal for that tomorrow, but this was on the books to discuss since 2016. So it's better late than never, but it is really urgent to do that and put the appropriate policies in place so that the program really renders the results that we want from it. Like, for example, the equity issues, re-examine all our budget priorities, shift towards training, deprioritize militarization, and of course caring about the data safety in the personal data, which is a different question. I would like to use another 90 seconds to discuss that in a different context.
All right. Thank you, Takis. Bob?
I am bothered by this, implicit assumption that all police are bad, when I know for a fact that the ones that are bad, a very small minority. Often it'll be individuals that are poorly trained, and that's not acceptable either. So I would like to see such a reallocation as done go toward better training. I don't think that, given our experience in the last several years, that that is an inappropriate reallocation. On the other hand, the police still have got a very difficult job, and they're getting a very bad press. And quite frankly, I can't believe the morale is anything other than rock bottom. And they tend often not to be even residents because we are such an expensive place to get to. I'd like to see the affordable housing stuff, handled in such a way, I guess, that we can offer some relief here. Why? Well, if nothing else, I don't want a policeman who is commuting 8 hours a day out there with a gun. I mean, I'd like him to be functional. I'd like him to be alert. And I would like a lot more trust than I'm seeing. And yeah, he's got to earn it. But we've got officers that can earn it if we just give them half a chance. I am not in favor of just taking away the police function until I have something better to replace it with. And I have no idea what that might be. So from the get-go, I would say let's put it into training. And we've got good people, but let's make them better. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. All right, next question. As you all know, Arlington County, under the governor's advice, entered phase 2 of the COVID-19 pandemic recovery plan on this past Friday. However, many people in Arlington and in Northern Virginia have concerns because from information that we have been able to, the limited information that we are given through county and hospital resources and state resources, is that we still do not have enough tests to randomly test people as per CDC guidelines. Further, we do not have the contact tracing resources if a further outbreak were to occur, whether it's as a result of the protests that have been going on or just from the general reopening in general. So would you support the emergency authority of the county to actually impose stricter guidelines on reopening than what is recommended by the governor? And for this round, we start with Takis.
My microphone is on. Okay. So the concern is valid. It is, and the international experience is that when the opening in phase 2 has happened, there was a spike in cases. I have to say that actually the county manager and staff did a good job in this. We have not sufficient, but we have appropriate resources in collaboration with the Virginia hospital to test and trace. They are not nearly enough if we have a new spike, and that could be a problem. But I believe that right now everybody is sensitive and and everybody will do their part. I believe that the businesses will be also very careful, and I don't think that I not expect that county will have to resort to emergency powers to enforce or to shut us back. I believe that if everybody takes it very seriously, everybody understands the stakes, and we all keep ourselves, put on our masks, follow the rules of hygiene and social distancing, that we will be able to flatten the curve even further and eventually get out of these woods. I'm actually confident that this will happen, and from what I've seen here in Columbia Pike, in my own neighborhood, the vast majority of our fellow neighbors are doing the right thing.
All right, thank you, Takis. All right, next is Bob.
I'm sorry, I was reading a comment. Can you give me the question again? Mr. Henderson?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Could you repeat that question? I apologize. I was distracted.
So as the governor has, as we all know,
okay, yeah. I've got to say, I am not opposed to Arlington County being able to do things in a different way. I do have a military background, and I got to say that if I got to defend something, I never try to defend everything. Rarely does any army have the resources to do that. You figure out what you need to defend, prioritize it, and then you defend what you can. We've got vulnerable individuals in our community. I doubt that we have a list of who they are and where they are, and we should, because our defenses should be placed there. I'll put a couple things in bobcambridge.com. It's some ideas and comments that I haven't seen as much as I wish I had, because I get all these statistics about how many cases are out there, and honestly, I'm not caring that much about how many cases we got. I care about hospitalizations, and I definitely care about fatalities. That's where the action is, and that's where we need to focus, and that's what the numbers that we need to knock down. And I'm thinking it's something like in a nuclear reactor, you got these control rods. You drop them in to soak up extra high energy particles in order to slow down the reaction. Well, herd immunity is just that. Anyone that's had this virus and has survived it is actually a control rod. And I think we're slowing down the development of control rods, which I hope is not a mistake. I don't know that it is a mistake. I want to make that clear. But we're not even asking those questions. That bothers me, because that is the kind of situation we should be looking at every few days, not every few months, to handle this right. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Susan.
Yeah, great. I think we have navigated pretty well so far, and the governor and his team have actually been quite responsive to the local leaders here, but that is not a given. And so I would support having at the ready the emergency powers. Again, you can move forward with them without necessarily using them if the governor continues to be flexible and pull back or make a context-based change for Northern Virginia. We're not out of the woods at all. Each of the holidays, Memorial Day, 4th of July, Labor Day, are going to have additional spikes. We have elections upcoming in the fall. We have demonstrations, Second Amendment demonstrations that will be expected, and we need to be able to very quickly make adjustments as we go. I think we have come up with good ways on the testing. I think the last number was 6.6% were positive tests, and anything under 10% is a good sign that you are at least testing folks sufficiently. But that number hides the fact that we have very inequitable experiences of COVID-19, particularly our Hispanic communities. More than half of the cases are in our Hispanic communities, even though they are about 15% of our community. And that is a huge, huge concern. And then lastly, the schools and the coordination between the schools, the county, and employers is a gigantic hill to climb. We finally have a new superintendent in place, and so that climb has begun, but it's a race against time. And the most challenging part of this is probably going to be November, December, January, when the regular flu season intersects, and we need to be ready to be nimble. So I would support the emergency powers if needed.
Right. Thank you, Susan. Let's see, next question. So when Katie Crystal first ran for the board a few years ago, one of her top priorities was looking to ways to involve younger residents of Arlington in county government. And while there have been some strides made, there still is a lack of participation, especially by people of the younger generation of all races and ethnicities. So I'd like to hear from you how you would engage younger people and make sure that they are involved in the future of Arlington County. And we'll start this round with Bob.
I think one of the problems that I've seen is that too often younger people do try to get involved and are ignored. And that's a big mistake. Again, every perspective is valuable. Every perspective is a very useful resource. And particularly now, we need to use that resource. And we haven't been doing that. On the other hand, how do you engage? There's 200,000 citizens of Arlington out there, and if they all talked at once, we would hear very little. I would like to see let's say a place you can text, a place you can blog, that would be read by the county staff, that would be read by the board. If you get a couple million texts, you're not going to read them all, of course. But such things can be even automatically filtered. And frankly, anything that even sounds like a different idea, a new idea, or a new way of looking at things can be pulled out and considered. And unfortunately, when you get a lot of ideas, the majority of them don't get you anything. But the few that do are absolutely critical, make all the difference. And we just need to realize that, take advantage of that, and listen to these people, because they're people and they're not dumb. And they're seeing things that we're not seeing. That's what it's all about. If we don't know there's a problem, we're not going to fix it. They know there's a problem. Hooray. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's go to Susan.
Yes, I think this is an incredibly important topic, and one that this intersects with the issue of the commission's meeting during the pandemic. Many of us have been pushing for a long time to modernize our engagement mode with our community. We still rely on in-person meetings, usually in the evenings, that go on for hours and hours. And in order to even have public comment, you got to sit through 3 hours of meetings for your 3 minutes. And that is not welcoming to not just to young people, but to people at all life stages, with different medical issues, with different family requirements, with different work requirements. So we should be using this time of difficulty and innovation to get good at Zooming, to get good at calling in, to get good at welcoming folks into the room virtually in order to contribute across all of those life stages. I think the recent Committee of 100 and Civic Fed meetings have been wonderful in how many people in chamber, how many folks were there of all ages, and really much more diversity as well. And I think that's a great sign. Not a great sign for the county if we can't get the commission's meeting again. But in general, I think that is the way to move the needle. And then I would just say I've spent my career working with young people in all the different sectors, and there is so much energy, so much enthusiasm. You just meet folks where they are, listen, and help guide them into having meaningful engagement.
All right. Thank you, Susan. Takis?
Yes, this is one of the, Arlington is one of the youngest, has one of the youngest demographics in the region. This is our town is actually a young town with low median ages. And it's a pity that we've never managed it properly to up the engagement of our younger generation, but also of other minorities and the rich diversity that we have, that is comprised from many different peoples from many different walks of life. So definitely for me, it's a matter of leadership, is how we do our meetings. Of course, we'll have to use Zoom and electronic means, but it's not enough. We have to send the signal all the time that their input, their issues, whether it is about bike lanes, whether it is about childcare, about support for families, about transportation, about employment issues, about tenant-landlord relations. These are issues that need to be first at the highest rank of our community conversation. Therefore, we have to be, I'm running to be open and listening and welcoming the new priorities of these different strata and meet indeed people where they are.
All right. Thank you, Takis. All right. We will do one final question and then we will move to closing statements. So the final question is, so we'd like each of you to tell us a little bit about what your professional experience in life, whether in the private, public, or the nonprofit sector, enables you to deliver effective, civic-minded, evidence-based, and data-driven oversight of our county and implement solutions in that manner. And we will start this time with Susan.
Great. I love that question because I do think the secret to getting government to work efficiently is always bringing the data to the table with the people to innovate and refine and improve. I have done that across my career, from helping banks get deregulated and lean into that in the 90s, working with schools, going through rapid change, using student data to drive improvements, particularly for our least advantaged and and racially diverse children in the District of Columbia. And more recently at the IRS, I actually created the organization that drives data-driven government innovation for IRS, reporting directly to the commissioner, and then did similar work like that for other governments after I finished my term there. It's incredibly important. The field is advancing quickly, and Arlington actually has been at the forefront at times, and we should be very much doubling down on that to be the best well-run government that we can be.
Great. Thank you, Susan. Takis?
Mike. So as said before, I'm an economist, and I've been working close or with local government for almost my entire career. This is a passion of mine. I really like local governance. This is the type of governance that delivers 80 or 85%, sometimes they say, of the governance experience of every citizen. So for me, this is really a fire in the belly, and this is why I'm running for county board. About data-driven government, of course we need data. Of course we need to monitor. Of course we need to control and have measures of success and failure for every single thing that we do. But data is not the only thing, and it doesn't substitute the experience with people. What I bring to the board is both understanding the data, cutting through the quantitative part, but also paying attention to the qualitative part, what happens with actual people, with communities. Sometimes, even in the best data-driven governance schemes, we find failures on the human side of things. And for me, this is where leadership kicks in. This is where experience kicks in. I have been doing that as a professional, as an activist, for many years. I've been doing that here in Arlington. So I think that I am uniquely qualified to manage these both worlds and bring them to the best possible result for this community.
Thank you, Takis. Bob?
When I was at CIA, I taught statistics and did a lot of work with computers. And I'm an attorney, and I know how easy it is, and I hope I haven't done it too often, but you can lie with statistics. I mean, you can focus on one aspect or one thing that is supported by the numbers that are out there and pretty much ignore the others. I am intrigued, disappointed by the situation we're coming into. The world is getting clearly much more chaotic, much more complex. And our ability to get our heads around some of these problems is actually where the problem is. Statistics should be helping us with that. All too often, it doesn't. And I see all too often statistics that don't prove a damn thing. And that is not a helpful phenomenon, but I see it every day now. I would like to see statistics that work. I would like to see data that is actually focused on an issue in a way that allows us to get an answer that will answer the question. Again, I've seen far too often when it doesn't. I'll put a little blog on my website, bobcambridge.com, on just that issue, because it is something that bothers me a great deal. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. All right, everyone. Thank you for all the questions that our audience has provided today. Sorry if we did not get to your question because of limited time, but at this point, I'd like to move on to closing statements. Each of you has 2 minutes, and we'll start this round with Takis.
Okay. So thank you for having us tonight. That was a very good forum. I have to be honest, about 2 months ago, I've never imagined that we will have this conversation today. And it has been a very difficult time for me. And I'm here because I lost a friend, essentially, Eric Gutschall, with whom I shared my political beliefs, my values, and a sharp focus on how critical it is to collaborate and to be a partner in Arlington and a good listener. So our community is at the crossroads. COVID has battered our people and our economy. Our vision of the future is challenged, But this is the moment where our democratic values of equality and inclusion matter the most. If we're going to be a place of fresh ideas, balanced solutions, respectful dialogue, and social justice, and government accountability and good fiscal health, we need to commit to bring back all Arlingtonians that are to the table. Our young professionals, our working families, our diverse immigrants communities, our African American neighbors, our tenant community, our aging neighbors, our many communities with disabilities, including those with mental health issues, our LGBTQ community, and our small business community. This is my commitment to broad, meaningful citizen participation, which includes the voices of all those who are not at the table right now, not for administrative reasons, but for systemic reasons. I've deep love and investment in Arlington. My professional and volunteer work reflect my passion for the issues and for good local accountable governance. I'm bringing to the board the leadership, the expertise, the experience, and a proven ability to convene diverse communities so that we emerge out of these multi-layered crises and as a stronger and more resilient community. So again, I'm Takis Karantonis. I'm ready to lead and help shape our future. With your help, I'm asking for your vote and support on July 7th, the special election date. And I thank again the Pike Presidents and CPRO for hosting this forum tonight.
All right, thank you, Takis. Next is Bob. Your closing statement, sir.
I was a criminal defense attorney for quite a while, and met a lot of nice folks. Yeah, they committed some crimes, but they were nice folks. I have definitely been transformed by that experience. I'll try to suppress some evidence that shows my client was guilty. Why? Well, my client has got a dog in that fight. And frankly, if something is being done wrong by the police, by the government, who else is going to fight it? Who else is going to actually go to the mat for all of you? So hell yes, the suppression of a thing should be done, and it should be done aggressively because it helps us all in the long run. And that was a change in perspective, I guess. I just kind of cruised along and hadn't really appreciated that there are some very good people out there who have a really, really rough time of it. My clients were absolutely among that group. And I started to realize that, when they're talking to me, they're saying something very important. I'd like to think that I have learned that I learn a heck of a lot more by listening than I do by talking, because it's true. And that's an important lesson. And that's a lesson I don't think our government at this point has fully learned. I did become an attorney, and then I didn't think I could sink any lower, but now I'm trying to become a politician. What are politicians doing wrong, really? Well, they perhaps feel overworked, and there's all the stuff they're trying to do, and they don't have enough time to do it all, so they don't listen. That's huge. That's serious. That makes a big difference. And that's a mistake that has been made now for going on 40 years in Arlington. That's got to change. I am asking for your vote just to try to make a change and start getting the government actually doing what they keep saying they're going to do, and listen. And frankly, they shouldn't be in charge. You should. That's what I like to see in our future. Thank you. I do ask for your vote.
Thank you, Bob. All right, Susan, your closing statement.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Adam. These are challenging times, and we've got a lot of hard choices still ahead as we respond and recover from COVID-19. On our board, we need bold leadership that's experienced with the executive leadership to balance the long-term plans with immediate progress. I will ask the right questions and bring our board and residents and businesses together to innovate and get the right things done quickly for all of Arlington. Like Eric Gutschel, I'm a parent and a civic leader deeply committed to balancing our growth, housing, transportation, and schools. And I will bring context-informed results, not one-size-fits-all rhetoric and plans, as I did while leading the Ham Middle School Building Level Planning Committee, the Stratford National Historic Site Interpretation Committee, and as a founding member of the Joint Facilities Advisory Commission. I will prioritize transparency, accountability, and much improved school-county collaboration on Pike issues, from transportation to public facilities. I'll bring people and data together, get clear budgets, facility needs, priorities, and outcomes, while balancing safety, parking, growth, livability, and economic development. As a small business owner and a large business advisor, I'll anchor every decision and discussion in fiscal responsibility. What's most important? Can we afford it now? Can we afford it long-term? Where can we learn and improve? Together, we can find fiscally responsible solutions that get results without breaking the bank. Thank you to CPRO and the Pike Presidents Group, to Kim and to Adam, for quickly creating this opportunity for public dialogue. And to those watching at home, I ask for your vote on or before July 7th. I'm excited to serve you with practical, experienced, independent leadership that Arlington needs right now. Please stay safe and order an absentee ballot or vote early in person. You can learn more, volunteer, donate, and follow social media at susanforarlington.com. I'm Susan Cunningham, and I ask for your vote. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone. Again, I thank all of the candidates. Again, Takis Karantonis, Bob Cambridge, Susan Cunningham, for joining us tonight. I think this has been a very good discussion of issues that concern both the Pike and Arlington at large, and I appreciate all of your time. I appreciate all of our participants that posed quite a few good questions for us to answer. And again, I'm sorry that we couldn't get through all of them in the time allotted. I will remind everyone, just to amplify what Susan said, and this is a good point, while the election is on July 7th, early voting is open, and you can also vote absentee. It's very easy to do. I sent for mine the end of last week through the Virginia government website, and there are links in the invitation that you received for this that tell you how to do that. So don't think that you have to wait in line on the 7th. You can do it right now, but whatever you do, get out there and vote, because our future and the future of Arlington County and the Pike is depending on your participation. So thank you all. Have a good evening, and we'll see you at the polls. Good night.
Thank you.